Hello everyone, Thomas from Medieval Review here, and I want to talk about a topic that really came up at the last second. I'm going to give you all my thoughts on it. It was a comment in a video and it really made me think I should do a video on this. Here's the deal. I want to talk about pommels. Now no, I don't want to talk about ending someone rightly. That joke is overplayed. You're no longer clever for referencing it. It wasn't even all that funny to begin with. Meme is dead. But I do want to talk about how you use the pommel, specifically how you should grip a longsword. This is probably going to go off in a couple different tangents. I'm really going to focus mostly on the pommel here, but I probably will talk more about grips in general. And this is certainly going to be based a lot on my own opinion. This is one of those things when it comes to HEMA, doing the historical European martial art thing, you look at the sources and you make educated guesses and you learn a little bit from other people who teach you things and you develop your own opinions and then you vet that out against multiple other people within the community and eventually everyone will hopefully agree on the right answer, right? Yeah, we know that doesn't happen. Here's the deal. If you feel that I'm wrong, if you disagree with me in any of this, please actually just tell me why. Give me your valid reasons. I would love to actually hear your thoughts that go against my concepts here, if there are any, because I want to grow. I want to have a better understanding. But this is more or less what I actually teach people that I'm teaching in terms of how to use a sword. This is actually going to be kind of devoid of speaking to a specific tradition, because certain traditions have much more specific use cases, but this is using a longsword in general, and I think it can apply to pretty much any master or any longsword tradition. So, some people say, when you grip a longsword, you should grip it thusly. Nice grip with your right hand if you're right-handed, left hand if you're left, but I'm right-handed, so I'm going to grip with my right hand, and your left hand should be right above the pommel, right there. And so you have a nice grip, and that's how you get good cuts, and you have the ability to wind, and because your hands are close together, you can get much more tight movements. And then some people say, no, you shouldn't grip it so high up. You should really just move that hand down just a bit so it nestles in that pommel. And then when you're attacking, you have this nice powerful strike, and you can really feel that leverage begin to take place. And there's another group of people that say, no, it's neither of those things. You don't grip up here, you don't slide your hand down, but you should be grabbing that pommel. You should be holding on to that pommel almost like it's a doorknob. And that gives you a lot of really good leverage. But it also allows you to, once you've struck into something, you can wind up real easily. And now here you are, you're palming it. You're ready for a nice strong thrust. Or you can move your hand back around and prepare for another cut. And that's how you should grip the pommel. So who's right? Well, I think they're all right. And I think they're all wrong. In fact, I believe if you stick to any one of those interpretations and that's the only one you use, you're actually severely limiting yourself from a martial perspective. Now, we have plenty of evidence in the source manuals from across multiple different masters of different ways to hold a sword. In fact, you're not always just holding it, gripping just above the pommel. You're not always gripping it slightly down, choked on the pommel. You're not always just palming it or grabbing it, like a doorknob. But sometimes you're really choking up on the handle so you can actually have a little bit of a grab point. You can grab someone's arms with the pommel. There's all sorts of reasons why your hands would actually move on the sword. So let's talk a little bit about just how you should grip a sword in general. Again, in my opinion. One thing I always talk about is don't white knuckle grip. If you're really holding on very hard, well, you lose a lot of the fluidity and movement, and you lose the ability to transition between different grips. A lot of people say, oh, you just do a nice hammer grip. Some people say you do a nice kind of handshake grip. In my opinion, you should be able to actually more or less swap between the two fairly easily. Of course, two hands helps with that a lot. And you should also have the ability to move to a thumb grip for various reasons. Certainly, if you're doing some sort of very complicated Zorkow maneuver. There's all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't white knuckle grip. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have a firm grip, but you definitely don't need to just hold it like your life completely depends on this sword never moving from that one position. Likewise, your left hand or your offhand, in my opinion, actually acts more as a fluid movement between different positions. When I'm fighting, especially when I'm wearing really big bulky gloves, I do tend to grip up more on the grip because it's a lot harder to move within. However, sparring without gloves in terms of light kind of drill sparring, etc. I find myself that I'll choke up a lot more on it, and certainly if I'm going through processes that are to replicate what's in the fight books, I'll actually find myself coming down to a pommel for one reason or another. And I think that you should actually have that fairly good fluidity with your left hand. Your right hand is going to be gripping and holding that blade, so it gives you that ability to loosen up a bit with that left hand and move it where you need it. Likewise, that left hand can grip hard when you need it to, so you can ease up just a bit with that right hand to get some movement if you're going to a thumb grip or if you're going to rotate the sword in your hand for one reason or another. There are reasons to do that, but at the end of the day, it's not about white knuckle gripping one way to do it. Hand here, never move them. I think that's a very, very bad practice, and I don't think that bears out in the sources. Certainly, if anyone looks at Meyer sources, Joachim Meyer, German longsword, you will see in the sources gripped way up here on the pommel, palming the pommel so they can go in with a thrust. These are, I think, really key tenets. I think that doing anything other than having those options available to you severely limits yourself without actual really any good cause, and it will give you the most versatility with this weapon. Certainly, at the end of the day, it's about what is right for the situation, and that matters a lot. If you're really trying to go for that palmed thrust in a weapon to really drive that thing home, of course that's where you're going to want your hand. That would matter probably a lot more if someone's in armor and you're trying to really push it through the mail that they have, like on their underarm, when you find that little spot in their armor. But you could also do it like this. You just lose a lot of that leveraging power that you have with your hand. So that's my thoughts on how you should grip a longsword. It's based on my own experience. It's based on what I've been taught by, honestly, people a lot better at this than I am. And I also think that it bears out in the sources. The sources tell us this. We should know to do this because that's what the masters of old told us in various ways. But certainly if you are under a specific tradition that really focuses on one way, then maybe you should really focus on doing it that one way for that tradition. But also don't feel like you artificially limit yourself. And always remember that the sources, the treaties, the fight books that were made, they weren't always made to be a perfect manual. There's sometimes a lot of things that are put in there they just kind of consider for granted. They just like assume everyone knows how to hold a sword, right? Here's a couple of ways you might want to hold a sword. Hold it thusly. Okay, you're good, right? And then they would maybe think, oh, in the next volume that I'll write that I never wrote, I might talk a little bit more about other ways to do it. I mean, who knows? It's really hard to tell sometimes with these fight books. But at the end of the day, don't limit yourself. Don't think there's only one right way. There is always the right way for the right situation. And I believe that gets vetted out in martial validity studies and just trying things out. But at the end of the day, don't white knuckle grip your sword. Just have a nice firm grip, but let yourself have a little bit more of that fluidity, that agility, and let the sword do the work. Don't worry so much about pushing everything through. That's my thoughts, my long ramble, not a ramble, thoughts on how to use the pommel of a longsword. Hope it helps some people out there when they're having these conversations. And again, if you disagree with me, post down in the comments below. Tell me what I've said wrong, correct me, and help me grow as a practitioner myself. Cheers, guys. Oh, and before I go, this pommel design, this kind of scent stopper rounded design, that's actually one of the reasons this is my favorite pommel, is because it allows for those transitions so much better. If you have a wheel pommel, it's a lot harder and a lot less comfortable to hold on to the sword this way. So these type of pommels, they're actually my favorite for general longsword usage. That's why I really like it. That's why you'll actually see me get a lot of swords with that type of pommel when I really plan on using them. Anyway, last minute thought. Bye.